Today we have Krystalore Crews on the podcast. She's a 21-year U.S. Air Force veteran, speaker, life coach, former NFL cheerleader, fitness coach, and corporate consultant, and she's on a mission to help every woman on the planet put their health and themselves first and reduce the stress and overwhelm of life. Krystalore has quite a vast and unique blend of experience in different things, as you can tell. She's the owner of Crews Beyond Limits, a fitness program that helps women put themselves first for just 34 minutes a day. She's the diversity and inclusion director for the Air National Guard. She's the CEO of Crews Beyond Limits Consulting, which is a leadership, training, and consulting firm. Krystalore has been featured in media outlets like Global Woman Magazine, the Get Celebritized Podcast, HEFluence, Sisters in Service, and Do Hard Things. This year, in 2023, she's actually gotten recognized multiple times. She was named by Global Woman Magazine as one of the top 100 global women entrepreneurs. And actually, we're just talking off air. She actually just today was announced as a top 10 finalist for the Military Spouse Entrepreneur Award as well. And in 2021, Krystalore also self-published her first book called Your Crystal Clear Life Planner, a woman's 90-day action plan to embrace chaos and live a fulfilling life. She has an incredible story of overcoming physical and health challenges as well. In 2005, she was confined to a wheelchair, but went from being unable to walk to running 26 marathons and a 50-mile race without the aid of medication. And she's also survived 2 major health scares, including rheumatoid arthritis and cancer. She's, as we mentioned previously, also a former NFL cheerleader, professional belly dancer, so she knows how to bring the energy and excitement to any room. She's quite the story to share of overcoming obstacles to become her best self, and we're glad to have her on. Krystalore, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Luke. Oh my gosh, I'm surprised every time I hear all of that.
Yeah, it's all true. I mean, it's all stuff that's happened, and we just have it having a summary there. But yeah, I mean, obviously you've been through a lot, you've done a lot, you've achieved a lot of things. So let's start from the beginning. Like, we were talking about kind of how you grew up. So what were things like for you growing up in Buffalo, New York?
Cold, first of all. So it's only cold if you're standing still. So I grew up as a dancer, a cheerleader, an athlete, and I was a runner. I was the smallest hurdler on the face of the planet. I'm 4'11 and 3/4, and I ran the 100 and 400-meter hurdles, which was a feat in itself. So that was like, you tell me I'm too short to do something, I'm pretty much going to tell you different. I'm going to prove you wrong. So that was kind of how I grew up, just challenging, always staying active and being an athlete. And so I went through my high school career, trying pretty much anything to stay active and be an athlete and all the team sports. And I was really a jack of Jill of all trades and a master of none until I got into college and I started indoor track and cheerleading. And then I tried out for the NFL. And so that was pretty cool, very great experience. And but prior to that, I joined the military too. So right after 9/11, joined the military, initially just to pay for college and to serve my country after 9/11. And so I was kind of growing through my undergrad, working part-time at a restaurant, um, training full-time basically for the NFL, and then growing my part-time military career. So it just, it was a really interesting upbringing and a very diverse set of skills all at once. And I feel like that's kind of been my my the normal space that I'm used to. So that's kind of the start of it. But I'll just pause there.
Yeah, so I mean, quite a few different things growing up. So just curious, like you're going to college, like you said, you were training to be a cheerleader. You said kind of like after 9/11 to serve your country, I guess, what kind of triggered you to want, obviously you're still in it today, like what kind of triggered you to want to join the military? Did you know someone in the military? Like what kind of led to your interests?
Yeah. So when I first initially joined, it was a friend of mine. Her and I, we had to pay for college. Like our parents weren't paying for college. So we, grew up in a small town in a suburb of Buffalo on an island, 6 square miles. And, I had to go to college. That was the rules. I had to go to college. I wasn't allowed to dorm and I had to study business. So, and I had to pay for it. So I was like, okay, I used basically my whole life savings for my freshman year in college. And as we watched the towers on the television in the student union in our freshman year, we were like, holy cow. And we had a friend that had joined shortly after. And so we were at a party one day and he's like, yeah, I'm joining. They're to help me pay for college and we can serve. We don't have to, move away. You can serve right here and continue your college. And so the Air National Guard, what I never even thought was an option. And so I didn't have the military on my radar. So I always kind of joke about it. My guidance counselor didn't tell me about entrepreneurship or the military. Going to college was the only option. And so I'm really grateful for that. But my friend and I just decided we're like, hey, let's do this. And I never looked back. There were a couple times in my career where I thought it was going to be over, but still here 21 years later.
Got it. So you were obviously in the service. So you joined the service, you were involved in a couple other things. So what kind of happened next?
So I guess the most pivotal point that, part of my intro was in the middle of my NFL season, I ended up, the time I was in a pretty toxic relationship. I was young, I was 22 years old. I thought I knew it all, right? I was trying to build my career and I made it to the NFL. And, those moments, I really kind of recognized that I was burned out. I was overtrained. And I was in a toxic relationship, not only with the person that I was with, but with myself and my health. And how I recognized that was I ended up in a wheelchair. Well, they tried to figure out what was wrong with me, and my entire body shut down. So fast forward, obviously, after learning a lot about power of movement and anti-inflammatory diets and power nutrition, because back in 2005, they didn't have Dr. Google. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have social media to like look out. And so I spent 6 months in a wheelchair while they tried to figure out what was wrong with me. And I felt very alone, and it was a very challenging time of my life. And as a young adult, I made it to the NFL. I was in a relationship. I was finishing my undergrad. I was at the height of what I thought my younger years were going to be. And just like that, like everything was ripped from me, every identity. And as an athlete, like, and you're told you can't even walk anymore without endless amounts of medication. I'm never going to be able to be an NFL cheerleader again. I couldn't be a runner ever again. I took so much medication, like my pill box was like this big, no lie. It was bigger than my head. And so there was an AM and PM, and I took chemotherapy, steroid injections, endless amounts of prednisone. And basically, the doctors were like, you're going to be on this medication for the rest of your life. And the medication, unfortunately, that they had me take, it was refrigerated injections that I had to put in my abdomen and my quads every other day to be able to walk. And that was the cocktail that helped me be more mobile. That medication was disqualified for the military, so they tried to kick me out about 3 years into it. And so not only was I starting something that serving my country, that was soon going to be over as well. And it was just a really challenging time. And it wasn't until I put myself in the emergency room because I had so much joint fluid in my leg that they had to extract all the joint fluid with a big, huge needle. Don't recommend trying that at home. But the ER nurse at the time worked with me on the base, and she was an angel. Her name is Rebecca. She's amazing. We're still friends to this day. But she was the game changer. She was the angel that literally, she's like, something doesn't seem right about what's happening with your body. She's like, you're an athlete, you're a runner. Like, seems just so, this doesn't seem right. So she's like, there's got to be another way. So she helped advocate for me to work with my doctors, to start standing up to them, to say, all right, are there other ways to be mobile? And so I worked to get off of all the medication. It took a little over a year, but I ended up weaning myself off of all the medication. And then I started moving. I started walking, and then I started running. And then not only did I heal externally, but internally for my mental health, it certainly helped. And I just started rebuilding from there, one step at a time, one light post at a time, then 1 mile at a time.
Wow. So what were the steps that you took then? I mean, obviously you mentioned that you started advocating for yourself. Like, what were the specific steps that you took? Like you said, you went from literally like kind of what you thought was the height of like, your life to that point, being in a great relationship, finishing your undergrad, like being an NFL cheerleader. And then obviously that hit where you were in a wheelchair, like where obviously, like you said, all of your identities were just taken away and you had to kind of reform your identity. So like, what were the steps once you decided that you did want to change? What were the steps that you took to get out of that?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I recognized was I didn't feel like I had a voice at the time, because I just, as a runner and as a dancer, I was a professional dancer too. Like, so as a dancer, an NFL cheerleader, they taught me, and even in the military too, you're taught to show up, look a certain way, and not really speak until spoken to. You're supposed to just be on all the time. And so I didn't always feel like I was worthy enough to take up space, to have a voice and advocate for myself. And pair that with some narcissistic, toxic, abusive relationship. I just kept getting smaller and smaller inside. And so I would perform um, to process my thoughts and feelings and emotions, right? And so um, it was in those moments where someone else believed in me and she said, no, there's got to be another way. That helped give me the courage to start asking more questions. And like there was a point where the doctors wouldn't even see me. I literally stalked them. I stayed in the lobby. And I said, I'm not leaving here until you see me. Because they were like, oh, honey, like you got an ingrown toenail. You're just working out too much. Like, suck it up. You're gonna be fine. And and at 22, you know, when you think about autoimmune and rheumatoid arthritis, it wasn't on their radar. So I don't fault them for it, but at the same time, like they didn't believe me and they kept just kind of shoving me to the side. And because I wasn't pediatric and I wasn't geriatric, which is where the rheumatoid arthritis typically comes in, many of my doctors have called me literally to my face a freak of nature because they're like, there's something about you that's just not, is unique, right? And so I think those moments of me just standing up for myself and just asking the right questions and also asking, I've learned now as an adult too, of like when I go to see new doctors, when I have specialists, I want to know if they're an athlete because I think we're a little bit unique, and I want to know that the answer to everyone's, if you're going through something, an illness or injury, like there could be potentially a way to work through the recovery process in a healthy way to continue to move or a version of that. I think instead of just stripping the identity completely, that could be really devastating for someone mentally, physically, and emotionally and spiritually, right? So what I did was really just started standing up for myself, advocating, asking questions, learning about what was happening in my body, and just grew more and more once I started running because as a runner, like you're a mad scientist. It was an athlete, any athlete. You have to make sure you have the proper levels, your nutrition, your hydration, your sleep, the movement, the whole balance of it all. You have to be so intuitive. And so I really learned to know what my body needed, and I was very intuitive with it. So early on, and then spent a lot of time running marathons. I spent a lot of time with my thoughts. And so I rebuilt the core of who I was, and I asked myself a lot of powerful questions. Who am I? If I'm no longer going to be in the military, I'm single, I am, I have an undergrad degree. Am I going to go through my master's? What are my values? What are my goals? And I just had to really start from scratch and rebuild that confidence, and keep the consistent movement and nutrition that was fueling my body properly. And then really just reaching out to community and recognizing the people that were in my life that, yeah, that, I needed to ask for help. And I'm always the one that was on. I had it all together, and I had to ask for help. I mean, sometimes I couldn't even get out of bed to even like change my clothes, let
For
alone,
sure.
so that's really the main steps that I took.
Wow. Okay. So I mean, obviously, a lot of thought, a lot of personal development work that went on, a lot of kind of like reshifting your thoughts and beliefs about yourself. So, definitely a lot of steps and process that went into it. So, you kind of recover from being in the wheelchair. You said you almost got kicked out of the military, but obviously you didn't. So you
Mhm.
kept with that. Then you started running marathons. So what happens from here?
Well, like I said, I kind of got off of all the medication a little over a year, and then I started running. And I found initially that I was running to kind of like prove myself that I could do it. And then I recognized too that I kept going and going and achieving more and achieving more and achieving more. And I was building my military career, and because I had gotten out of that toxic relationship, and I kind of rebuilt this, myself again so much that I was pretty hardened. I'll be honest. And I was a perfectionist. I had, still even to this day, I never leave unless I'm fully made up. And, it just everything has to have its space. And that's part of my personality as well. But it wasn't until I met my husband, really, almost 10 years ago now, and where I started to kind of unpeel another version of myself, where I'm kind of a recovering perfectionist and and people pleaser. So we got orders. He was in the military as well, and we had 2 months' notice, and we had to move away from everything that I knew and move to a brand new city and start all over again. So,
Wow.
um, yeah, so that's when I started my business, and that started a whole new personal growth journey of entrepreneurship.
So I want to cover the entrepreneurship in a second here. Another thing you mentioned, like you had been in a toxic relationship, and then you were obviously able to find, a completely different relationship. So how did you go about like transitioning that mentally, do the mental work to be able to get into the right relationship at that point? Because I think a lot of people do struggle with that.
Yeah, and I really think just getting into the running community, I was volunteering. I just did a lot of what brought me joy. And I was like, if I'm gonna meet someone, they gotta be along for the ride. And fun story, actually. When I met my husband, he made what I called my like music to my ears, but he calls like the biggest mistake that he said is I always wanted to run a marathon, he says. He's like, "Oh, you're a marathoner? I always wanted to run." I was like, "Oh, okay." So we have a marathon next month. So you ready? So he actually signed up, and I trained him for his first full marathon in 30 days. And
Wow.
so
So
a lot of our
how much
first,
was he running before that? Just curious.
he had run a half marathon, and he's a bodybuilder. So,
Okay.
um, and he had actually he tore his pec a little bit. Um, and so he was kind of recovering from an injury. So he wasn't doing a whole lot of lifting. And he's like, well, I guess if I'm going to date this girl, I better, try to keep up. And I told him, I said, well, it's stiff competition. The longest anyone has ever made it was 15 miles. And like, then it's after that, they all drop off, right? So for me, I was like, I need someone that's going to be able to sustain and keep up, right? And so it's kind of a joke between us, but the first marathon, 30 like a month later was he made it to mile 17, told me he loved me at mile 18, and I made him wait till after 22, after the wall, and then I returned it.
Wow.
Because he's like,
So
I made it farther than anyone has ever gone before. So,
love it, love it. So, right, like you said, you kind of, went about it a different way. Obviously, you found someone who is also into being healthy, into similar fitness type things as you. And then obviously first kind of thing you did together sounds like was train for a marathon, and you trained him for it in 30 days. So that's pretty impressive.
hmm
All
but he
right.
kind of duped me because he's run 5 marathons ever since, but he really did it to test himself and achieve that thing. But he's not a marathon runner anymore.
Got it.
He sticks to halves, and he's the best cheerleader and support. He travels with me everywhere and has just been such an amazing advocate. And so,
For sure, for sure. So obviously, like, you did a lot of running, you did a lot of marathons, long distance races, things like that. And now obviously one of the things that you do is, you coach fitness. Obviously, you're a cheerleader, dancer. So how did you transition into becoming a fitness and health coach?
so I guess I'll back up to after I got off of the medication. I shopped for my first apartment in a wheelchair, and I was kind of rebuilding my health again and getting active. I missed performing. I couldn't be in the NFL anymore. Like, I actually did retry out and I did make it. I was just so out of shape, and I was in a bad mental space too. So I just wasn't on. And so I ended up going on Groupon in the new city that I moved into. And this is a really great tip for a lot of people. If you want to try something new, go to Groupon in your local community. You never know, like, what classes you might take, a paint class or paintball class. Or for me, I saw that there was a 5 class pack for a belly dance class. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Never done belly dancing before. And so I signed up. It was like $25 for 5 classes. And I went like every Monday for 5 weeks. And by the third time, the third session, they were like, you're really good at this. Do you want to start performing with us? So I ended up going on tour with them and just became a professional belly dancer, and learned the art of belly dance. And it was really, really cool. And we traveled to different art festivals and stuff like that. And I was in all these shows. And Halloween seems to be like a really cryptic slash pivotal point in my life, because Halloween, when I was the witch, Halloween, I did a show, and I ended up on the front page of the newspaper. And we had some critics because a lot of belly dancers don't have six-pack abs.
Uh,
So I was like
gotcha.
the kind of the unique one,
Gotcha.
where I was an athlete and I prided myself on having a flat stomach. And I'm 4'11 3/4, so I'm always front and center. So I ended up on the front page with like literally a pose, like with my arm out, but my abs just totally ripped, right? And I was doing this like reach, this like fancy move. And I had so many haters like kind of say, oh, you must have a good photographer, good airbrushing move, good job. And so everyone always asks me, how do you have all these abs? And so I actually started with 3x5 card, and I started writing down my ab exercises. And I would teach every Saturday morning at the academy. So I would teach all these boot camps. And then for my military position, I would travel all over, and I would teach the boot camps. I would do group runs, and then it turned into like burpees and, like hit training. And I took karate as a kid. In my abusive toxic relationship, I had to use some self-defense moves. And so I was like, I can start teaching self-defense. So I got certified to teach kickboxing, and then created a 30-minute system that is high intensity interval training and kickboxing with no equipment that you can do from anywhere. I was in a hotel, bags are always packed. So I just created this system, and I love to perform. I love to get people, up and moving, and it's 30 minutes, including warm up and cool down. And so I have fun, and I get to bring the energy and bring people together, and get people to sweat together and have fun and not take themselves so seriously. So I did this all over, everywhere I traveled for the military, all over the world. And then when COVID happened and all the gyms shut down, everyone knew I did this. And so I got a couple phone calls and they're like, hey, all the gyms shut down. Can you teach something online? And so I created an online membership and I taught every day during COVID at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. for men, women, children. I did dance camps, cheer camps, running camps. I was people's babysitter because I would like do all these sessions online because I started my online business in 2017. So I had already been growing my online business and traveling all over. With my husband being in the military, we've moved 4 times in the last 6 years. So like bags are always packed, constantly traveling for the military. And so we live out of suitcases in hotels. And so I get to travel the world and collect amazing community and, stream online wherever I'm at in the world.
Wow. How is that like lifestyle wise? Like, to balance like having like a regular schedule and moving so much, like how do you deal with that?
It's a challenge. It really is. I'm not going to lie. And it's a daily discipline. And especially when we're traveling, really having the set of non-negotiables. So for me, I created the 34-minute mindset, which is 2 minutes of gratitude, goal setting, intentions in the morning. So tapping into relationships. So no matter where I'm at, I'm very intentional every day, and that's um, I map out this mindset in my Crystal Clear Life Planner in my book. But you don't need a fancy like planner or my planner. You can just use a notebook. Start with 2 minutes in the morning, and then having 30 minutes of movement, no matter what, and then 2 minutes of reflection and celebration, and like intention of like, hey, did you do what you say you were going to do? So, did you drink your water? Did you eat properly? Did you accomplish all the things? And so that's the 34-minute mindset that kind of keeps me grounded to something. And especially when I'm going after big, lofty goals, a lot of times we tend to think about how much farther we have to go, and how much, instead of like how much we have accomplished. And I recognize that in marathon running. It's like I've had to learn that I am like, I ran 10 miles. It's not like, oh, I have 16 more miles to go, because that's easily what our brain wants to do, right? Is focus on the negative. So having the mindset shift and the flip of like, hey, I did accomplish this much. I may not be there yet, but I've gotten this far. So that is part of my daily reflection. And then just making sure the hydration is on point, especially traveling. You can dehydrate you different elevations. So I'm constantly staying hydrated. I, the first thing I do is go to Walmart or Target to fill the refrigerator, make sure I always have healthy snacks, planning ahead. And then I make sure that I get my movement in no matter what. So, and sleep as much as I possibly can to keep on a regular regimen. But sleep, hydration, movement, nutrition have to be a daily non-negotiable no matter what, because I have to be able to navigate the stressors of travel, the exhaustion, and then to be on, like I have to perform, I have to be on like a travel around to speak. And sometimes I do 40-hour courses to companies, and sometimes they're 2 weeks at a time where I'm in another state. So I have to be very intentional. It's like running a marathon every day, teaching like an 8-hour class, right? For 100 students. So it's like I have to be consistently on. So that's what I love to help clients do, is see like the daily non-negotiables, how they really do add up.
So another thing is like you obviously are very passionate about what you do, and I think a lot of people struggle to find their passion. Like, how did you determine like this is like you work so much, but clearly like you're very energized by it? Like a lot of people are kind of drained by what they do throughout the day, or oh, I have to work out, or I have to, do my job. Like, where did you develop like that passion and energy to be excited about working so much and doing all these things?
Yeah. So the where did I find it was in the fetal position with a bunch of tears, broke with no job, is how I really found it. Once again, 6 months in pretty deep depression when I moved away from home. when I met my husband and we moved away, um, I had an MBA. I had all this experience in the military, and I was like, oh yeah, they'll hire me, no problem. Yeah, it was a big problem because I wasn't prepared for that transition of what that identity shift was going to look like. After 10 years of wearing the uniform every day and getting a paycheck, a nice paycheck, first and 15th of every month, to moving away to a city where I knew no one and applied for civilian jobs. I applied for HR, recruiting positions, and they were like, you're too rigid, or we need someone a little bit more long term, or you're just going to leave us again, So I got a lot of closed doors. And also that I was in the military, my position in the military was a diversity and inclusion consultant. Now, this is in 2017 before the civil unrest. So, as a white woman in diversity and inclusion, I got a lot of doors closed. They were like, no way, there's no way. And I'm like, but I have this experience. And so I just really, really struggled. And I went on LinkedIn, found a coach that's focused on military transition. She asked me some powerful questions. And that's when I really, truly learned about the power of coaching. Her and I are very close to this day. And she asked me some powerful questions like, what? Like, you're starting from scratch. Again, you get to choose. You have a silver platter. It's an open book. So let's figure out like what are those things that you enjoy. So I love fitness, I love community, and I've done a whole lot of mindset work. And I wanted to create a business that I never had to A, vacation from, or B, um, have to find another job at the next location when we had to move again. And so it was in those moments where I was like, what can I do? What do I enjoy? And how can I put it all together? And how can I get creative with the credentials that I have, the experience and the energy and the uniqueness that I can bring? And so that's what really started the business in the fitness and the coaching space. And I love to travel too, but we kept moving. So we did travel a lot, my husband and I. But fast forward to, I started building online communities in this global brand during COVID. And everyone's like, you really built something special. You have a beautiful community. And I feel like I can be my full self here and I can flourish. And I have women starting businesses, going after PhDs, getting out of toxic relationships themselves, standing up for themselves and feeling more confident and like losing 80, 90, 100 pounds. Like this is magical transformation and a lot of hard work that they've been able to do with my system where they were like, we need to meet in person. So in 2021, I had my book. 2022, I was like, okay, this is the end of COVID. I said, I promise I have this beautiful community. I said, I want to try to create a retreat, an in-person experience. So I did. And last year I hosted 3 retreats in a mansion on the top of a mountain in Costa Rica.
Whoa.
So I take 6 women for 6 days. And so I've been able to put it all together. And if you were to see the highlight reel of my social media, it's like she's traveling all over, she's always on vacation. But I literally just this is what I do. I've been able to be so aligned in helping people live happier and healthier, me being able to stay happy and healthy and accountable, being a part of a beautiful community of amazing women that are just wanting to be happy and healthy and cheer each other on. Oh, and we get to travel the world and do it. Hello, like who wouldn't want that?
Right.
So it's been beautiful. And so what I love to do is to help others, like really just through my story, through my development. I feel like I'm just getting started to be able to help build other women that are going after their dreams and finding their aligned purpose and direction, where they don't have to vacation and escape anymore from their life, where they can just have a zest for life. And so I created a coaching certification program. So now I'm building aspiring entrepreneurs and bringing them through an internship, and they're leaders and mentors within my business, and they're building their own businesses and they're stepping into their true power and passion. And it's beautiful.
Love that. So one thing you mentioned is that you help women become happy and healthy. So I think happiness is often something, that a lot of people have different opinions on, like what does happiness mean? How do you become happy? So, for you, like if you're dealing with someone who is feeling chronically or consistently unhappy, how does a person become happier with life and with their overall outlook?
It starts by giving themselves grace and getting to know themselves to the core, right? And so the best thing that any of my clients want, the moments that I get chills from is, Crystal, I'm finding myself and I'm falling in love with myself. And that is, I think that's freedom. I think that's happiness. When you can unapologetically find and give yourself so much love and grace and space to be able to navigate any of life's stressors and pressures, and or any space that you can walk into and confidently walk in and be like, yeah, here's who I am and here's what I'm put on this earth to do. Like, watch me, let's go. And that's, I think, the inner happiness, no matter what's on that scale, or like just to look in the mirror and say, especially moms out there, like loving their body at any size. And it's really a self-love from within, because a lot of women come to me and they're like, I want to fit in my wedding dress, or I want to go on vacation and I don't want to have to like cover up. I'm sick of wearing black all the time. I'm uncomfortable. And really it's really helping them see pieces of themselves, and creating the self-trust and the self-love and the discipline, which it's really a lot of a mindset shift, of flipping the script of a lot of the toxic thoughts that reel in our head constantly, and being in that community that's going to help hold you accountable and keep you in check and not let you falter, not let you fall back.
Love that. The other side of that is healthy. What does it mean for someone to be healthy?
Mm. I think really sticking true to their non-negotiables of what is right for them, right? And so that is kind of it's an exploration and it's different for everyone. So recognizing food insensitivities, the amount of hydration that we need, what hormone imbalances we have, perhaps. I deal with a lot of women that are postpartum, go through hysterectomies. There's a lot of changes as we get older in age, right? So I always say, like, we need to collect the data, and really take a look at what our environmental factors are, what our life stressors are, the, you know, getting a full panel to know what our insensitivities are, and being very conscious with making sure we're eating enough, eating the right foods, and giving your body the fuel and the movement that and the self-care that it needs. And it's a fine dance. And I think when you can live, you feel healthy when you can look in the mirror and you're alert and awake and excited. You can be, I have women that are 72 that are in a wheelchair and they have this beautiful smile and they have this zest. They may not be their fittest self, but they're healthy inside and out. And I think that is a feeling that a lot of people aspire, and that's that true alignment.
For sure. I mean, I think you just said so many things there that resonate. So let's say you have someone right now, and I'm sure you deal with a lot of women or people like this who are just right now, they're like, well, Krystalore, I mean, right now I'm just very unhealthy. I don't like what I see when I look in the mirror. I'm not happy right now with how I look, how I feel. Things aren't going the way that I want them to go in life. I really just feel stuck. It just feels so overwhelming for them to even begin. They don't even know where to begin. Like, what are the first like one or two action steps that person can take?
Yeah, so I actually have a 30-day habit tracker. So that is, really just setting a couple non-negotiables that you can do, small things each day. Because I always share, like, when you can do a couple things, such as take one walk around the block, and then tomorrow do two, or walk up the stairs, or do something each day. Drink an extra glass of water. It's easier to add things to your diet and to your habits than it is to take it away. A lot of times when women work with me, they want to cut out all the carbs and stop drinking alcohol. And I'm like, no, no, no. Let's start with movement. and hydration. Those are the two biggest things that I think can have the biggest impact on our mental and physical well-being. That I think if you do nothing else, like add more water and move your body. And then the brain will not only keep track of the consistent habits that you're doing and you showing up powerfully, you're going to start making different decisions because you're going to feel better. And then, I'll always start with movement and hydration, and then the nutrition comes later. Like, let's get you consistently small movements first, and then we'll add in some learning about what you're doing with your nutrition. Because if we do too much too quick, that's where people fall off, because we don't know really what's working. And a lot of times when people are stuck and overwhelmed, I find that they don't trust themselves to stay on and do all those things all at once, right? So it's like if they miss one thing, especially, I work with a lot of women that are perfectionists, and they're like, if I miss that one mark, then oh, stop, we're gonna just stop and start over. It wasn't worth it. The last 13 days that I didn't make it to 14. I shouldn't even started. So I think really gaining the confidence from just building that muscle and building the skill and building that consistent movement will eventually start to build more momentum and more confidence. And then you can add more skills. And that's like, it's kind of like the snowball effect. And that has worked for me every time. And so I really love to walk my clients through that small process. And I have to kind of pull them back sometimes and say, whoa, you're doing way too much right now. Like, let's bring it back, because I know that it could lead to burnout and way too much overwhelm.
Again, I love so much what you said there. I love the habit tracker too, the 30-day habit tracker, because I think what you said, like, confidence comes from trusting themselves that they're going to follow through with what they say they're going to, right? So like if there's one habit, right, whether it's go for a walk, whether it's, eat healthy, whether it's do workouts, whatever it is, like a lot of those things we're talking about because they're things you can control. If you stack wins, right, and if you give yourself evidence that, hey, I am consistently doing these things, I am the type of person who follows through on my word, then a lot of times I agree that does build up self-confidence. So I love that approach.
Yes, it does. And I'll just share, there's a couple on here that, the most elite athletes, the high performers, the CEOs, they do these things. So I've paid close attention, right? And so I want to make sure that if I'm doing these things, I know that it's going to add up over time. So I don't hit the snooze button. I get my morning workout. I journal, my journal and intentions. I meditate every day. So these are just some ideas. I declutter something. So my space, my environment, has a direct correlation of what's happening in my brain. So if there's messiness and like it's not in order, then it's going to feel not in order upstairs. So I declutter something, whether it be desk, laundry, sock drawer, fold sock, whatever it is, I declutter something. Lead generating activities for my business. I read for 10 minutes, present moment with my husband, and then in bed by 10. So that's kind of like some ideas that I need to track. Obviously my nutrition and my hydration, that is typically what's on my clients' habit tracker. But actually at the end, I don't think I printed this one. This is just for me, but at the end of the 30-day habit tracker, and it's free on my website, there's a water tracker for each day for 30 days, and then there's a workout tracker as well. So you can not only type in your daily non-negotiables to keep track, but you can do your water and your hydration separately, or your water and your workout separately. So it just helps people, give them a tool and get them excited. And I love to see, like, my clients, they post it on social media. They're like, yes, I've been so consistent. Aren't you proud of me? I'm like, yes, but are you proud of you? Well, yes, I am. I didn't think this was possible. And it's just pretty cool to watch, watch that, their confidence build, and that self-love and that self-trust build.
Love that. Love that. All very good ideas, and kind of give us an insight into your lifestyle and your daily negotiables as well. So I know we're running up on time here, and I want to finish with two questions. So the first question is, where can people find out more about you?
I'm Krystalore Crews. It's Krystalore on all the socials and or crystalorecrews.com. And so just send me a message. I'd love to help you, see if I can support you or point you in the right direction, give you some tools and resources and get you moving. So I do a lot of different challenges and my next retreat coming up again in Costa Rica. So we do in-person events and workshops as well. So there's plenty of ways to meet you where you're at in your fitness journey and wherever you're at in the world. So send me a message. I'd love to connect.
Love it. Love it. And we'll definitely link those in the show notes as well. And the last question that I like to ask people, and we've covered this somewhat already, but let's say, we're fast forwarding right now. It's the end of your life. You've achieved everything that you've wanted to achieve. You've lived all the experiences that you wanted to live. How do you want to be remembered?
That I created a movement. I created the 34-minute movement where women, especially women, can live happier and healthier and reduce the stress and overwhelm and go after their dreams and goals. And so I think that's the energy that is, it's contagious and it's a movement because, and I had a shirt on earlier, it's about the 2%. 2% of the population, studies show, it might be a little bit more than this now, but studies show that about 2% of the population actually does personal development work voluntarily, actually looks in the mirror and does this work. 2% of the population also works out every day. Only 2%.
2%.
Like
Wow.
actually puts their body in motion consistently every single day. And 2% of your day is 34 minutes a day. So it's about the 2%. And so what I've created is a movement. I want it to be more than 2%. And so my hope and my prayer is that with, just showing up and showing others what's possible, that 2%, when I'm 120, because that's how long I'm going to live, that it's more than 2%. It's going to be like 40% at least. That's
Wow.
my goal.
Love it. Love it. You have a crystal clear vision right there on
That's right.
on what you want and how you want to impact people. So Krystalore, we appreciate your time today. So many takeaways, obviously, in different areas of life, whether you're, already kind of seasoned in what you're wanting to do and how to get to the next level, or whether you're a beginner and just want to start making some steps toward getting to where you want to get to. So definitely go ahead and check out Krystalore's stuff. We'll post the links below, and we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.